Hello, this is Zach from Dataminer, and this is going to be a video that demonstrates our new tool, Recipe Creator. Recipe Creator is currently in its beta phase, so things might look a little different for you when you use it, but all the functionality will still be the same. And in this video, we're going to quickly just run through an example, and then I'm going to backtrack, and I'll actually go through that whole example in fine detail, just to explain all the different steps in the process. Alright, so let's begin. As you can see, I have Recipe Creator open, and let's just make a new column. Let's call it location. I'm going to highlight, select the glass, and then you can see that it has successfully selected the information. And then I'm going to save it, give it a name, and press save. Alright, and then we're going to close that, and then we're going to run it, sandbox test. Great, and now as you can see, we have the location and all the information I had previously. Alright, so now that you've seen that it works, and it is super awesome, let's go into the actual fine details of it all. So we're going to close this window, and let's open up Recipe Creator once more. And this first pop-up, you're going to see that there's just some quick instructions to help you out, and then also a link to our help page, and as well an email address in case you have any questions. Alright, so now let's just create a recipe. And Dataminer, a Recipe Creator, is really great about saving your work. So as you can see, it still has the same recipe. So to start fresh, what we'll do is go to Recipe, and then do Reset, which is essentially just going to clear off the recipe that we currently have. So let's reset it, press OK. Alright, and now we are starting fresh. Okay, so the very first thing I would like to point out is that we have something called row selector. And the row selector is going to be a container that wraps around all the information you're trying to extract. So for example, we're currently on a list page, so each row is going to be a container that we want to isolate. And you only have to do it once. Dataminer will do the rest for you. So to kind of demonstrate, I'm going to hover over this one row, and as you can see, we've now selected it, and the way you select is simply by hovering over with the mouse and then pressing Shift on the keyboard. So again, it's just hover and Shift. Alright, let's go back to the original. Hover and Shift. Great. So at this point, we've now kind of selected it, but we still have to lock it in. And the way you lock it in is by selecting a class. And Dataminer will provide a few suggested classes. However, if it seems too generic and it captures multiple things that you're not looking for, then you kind of have to play around a little bit and find the correct class. So for example, if we select the first one here, row, it's a little too generic because it also captures the title and the bottom pagination. So what we would do is then go up one until we can find a more unique class. Awesome. So as you can see, we now have a person container that seems much more appropriate for what we're trying to capture. So let's select that. And great, now we have 4 rows, and that perfectly represents the page. So now that we have our container, or the row selector, now we can actually go after the specific data. So to do that, just go to one of your columns, and you can create multiple columns by just doing plus column, as you can see. Alright, so now for the first one, let's give it a name. And let's just make it, actually, for the first one, let's make it the URL, because eventually this recipe will be used with a job. So let's make that first column URL, and then what we'll do is hover over the person's name, because that's where the link is located, and press Shift. And now it provided us a class with headline, which should work. And the way you capture a URL is actually with this drop-down menu right here where it says extract data. You're going to select that and then pick the URL option within the drop-down menu. So select URL and then do data to just double check your information. Great, so that successfully captured the URL. So now that we have that, the first one is done, so now we can move on to column 2. And let's say column 2 will be the actual name. So again, hover and Shift, and at this point, it's just normal headline, with the text. And as you can see, it is the name. So we're just checking the data once more and back to the selector. So now let's do our third one. Let's make this just title, and let's hover over the title, press shift, and capture the title class, and double check, and great, we were successful. Great, so there's these first few were kind of easy. Now I'm going to go into something a little bit more complicated. So let's say you want to capture industry. So go ahead and hover and shift and click industry. Looking at the data, you can now see that we actually have the word industry as part of it, which may not be ideal. So we can go back to the selector and then come down here to the HTML, and you can see the actual HTML of the page and kind of investigate and see how we can better select it. So as you can see, we currently have the P tag with the class industry as our main item, when really we want the information inside the strong tag. So what we can do is simply just go to the jQuery selector, press space, and then type strong, and that will get us the HTML tag inside the P class with the P tag with the class of industry. So now that we have done that, we can go back to data and see that we successfully captured just the strong information within the industry column. All right, so that is awesome. And I'm going to show you one more example. Let's say for some reason you, instead of capturing these individual items with classes, let's say that they did not have a class. So we're going to just select that and go up. And so there is a class called basic info. Let's select that and let's pretend that that is the only class we have. But looking at the HTML, you can see that inside basic class, there is an h4, which would then be where we can use the last thing we just learned. So we can do h4, and that gets just the name. But then also, you'll see that there are two p tags. And let's say you want the location and not the title. And if we were to just do the p, we would capture both, which, as you can see here, and it's not ideal. And if we wanted just the location, what we would do is actually come down here to where it says the element selector, and you can go up or down. This is essentially just going to count through the different elements within the current container. So to show you, let's just do one up. So when it is 0, that is the very first one. So it starts at 0 and then goes from 1, 2, 3, and so on. But we don't want the first one. We want the second one, which is going to be 1. So let's go ahead and press up again. And great, now that it is 1, we actually picked the second element. And at this point, we can check our data. And yes, we were successful. Great. So that is pretty much all you need to know right now for just the basic selector of information. I'm going to show you one more thing, and that is next page. Next page is the process of simply clicking to the next page and then scraping. All right, so to do that, just highlight or select the next page option up here in the rows and columns, and it's the exact same process. So with this highlighted, we're going to go down to the next page options and select the next page and pick the class next. And as you can see, it's highlighted in the blue, and there's not much data to see, but what we can do is actually test it. So do test navigation, and it took us to the second page. Great, so that worked. At this point, we're pretty much done. So all you have left to do is just save the recipe. So to do that, just go to the recipe settings, give it a name, sandbox demo, and then just press save. And then Dataminr will automatically save the recipe in your My Recipes. So I can show you that now. So we're going to have to close Recipe Creator. This is actually very important. You must close Recipe Creator before you open Dataminr, because the two applications could clash with one another. So again, close Recipe Creator, and then open Data and select the recipe that you just created. So sandbox demo. Great. And now, as you can see, we have everything we created: the URL, name, title, and so on. So at this point, we could just test pagination to see if it works. And it did. We're on page 3. And let's wait till it goes to page 4. Great. All right, page 4. And looking back at the data, we have multiple accumulated rows, and you can just stop pagination. And at this point, we can just download it. Oh, yes, we should allow. All right, press save and open. Let me reformat that just a little. Great. So now, as you can see, we have all that information going from the recipe creation to the actual scraping into now the data download. So that pretty much wraps this video up. I know it was a lot. If you have any questions, definitely reach out to us. You can reach out at support@data-miner.io, or our beta-specific email, which is beta@data-miner.io. So yeah, again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, and I hope this video was helpful. All right, thanks for watching.